There was a part of my life that looked like this for 200 to 300 nights out of the entire year. That was like 17 to 24. There was a part of my life that looked like this. It felt like it lasted a lot longer than it did. And this sounds cliche, but looking back, I wish those days were still here, even though I want all the days that I have now. And of course, just like everybody else, I had my season of being a super awkward kid. And I grew up, and now I'm a super awkward adult, and I'm super proud of that. And in case you're new here, I want to say hi. What's up? I'm Jamie Grace, and welcome to my YouTube channel. I've been making YouTube videos for about 16, 17 years. I go off and on of seasons where I'm like super scheduled, like podcasting and stuff like that too. But these last couple of years, like most people in the world, I've really been staring into the sky going, huh? And sometimes my online content has reflected that as I upload and kind of share as I can. And I'm really grateful for the people that are here, whether for the first time or that have been here for a while or that kind of pop in and out from time to time. I'm just grateful that this is still a huge part of what I get to do. I sing songs, I write songs, I produce songs. I also make videos and occasional podcast episodes. And my whole life is kind of around creativity and artistry. And so I'm just really grateful that this is what I get to do. But like I said, if you're new here or if you've just kind of been popping in and out, I wanted to reintroduce myself. Hi, I'm Jamie Grace. I was born in 1991 in Los Angeles, California. Long Beach, California, to be exact. So Long Beach, not Los Angeles. But oftentimes when your story gets public, you kind of have to, you start getting asked to make your story make sense to people that might not know certain things about California, right? So Los Angeles, California. I have a mom and a dad, and I have an older sister named Morgan. She's 21 months older than me. She is the cool one of the family. Just kidding. We both have our moments, but she's really cool. She's really cool. She's a poet. Her name is Morgan Harper Nichols. And yeah, she's 21 months older than me. My mom decided to homeschool us, I think before she even knew she was going to have kids. She and my dad, one of their first dates was to a teacher supply store. If you just want a little bit of context of how nerdy are we, there you go. Dad, I hope that doesn't get a copyright strike for being too much. Anyways, that was a John Batiste song, which is the alarm on my phone. But my dad is a pastor. He started preaching when he was 19, 20, 21, 22. I'm not really sure. I wasn't there. My mom started preaching later in her 20s or something like that. Again, I was 6. I'm not supposed to remember all this stuff. But for context, I was raised in a home with 2 preachers. My mom's an educator. My dad is an electrician by trade. They're both super bright and smart and fun and goofy and just great. I really am grateful for the family that I grew up in. My sister Morgan, also super cool, creative, artsy, and all those things. And we had your very typical raised in the South, homeschooled, preacher's kid upbringing. And I'm kind of joking when I say very typical because I don't think any of that stuff can be typical, right? We had some of the stuff that was super typical, oh, look at us, we're growing up in this home and it's beautiful and there's love and all those kinds of things. But there's also the stuff that wasn't typical at all. Growing up in a small town, we had a very dear neighbor who chose not to live within the physical, confines of what we would call a house. And it wasn't he just chose to live in his tent and he was super cool. And so people would be like, oh, who's that guy? And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's my favorite neighbor, so-and-so. I'm not going to put his name out there. That's my favorite neighbor, so-and-so. And they'd be like, oh my gosh, where does he live? Oh, he lives there, he's just super cool dude. And to me, that was super normal. Another neighbor that collected antiques and things like that. And so every year on our birthdays, her name's Miss K. I'll say her name. Every year, on our birthdays, she would give us little books and antique books, old Nancy Drew and stuff like that we really liked. There was so much eclectic stuff about our upbringing that I guess would be considered different, but we loved it and still love it. And it's what made us who we are today. We didn't grow up with a lot of money. I may have missed the part where I said we moved, but when I was 2-ish, we moved from LA to Georgia, and my dad started a church here when I was between the ages of 2 and 5. I don't remember exactly, early 90s at some point. But yeah, we moved here. We didn't have a ton of money. My parents were really just focused on missionary work and just serving the local community and just making life work to the best of their ability. And sure, like I knew to an extent growing up, like, oh, I'm buying vinyl and my friends at church are buying CDs or tapes, like, oh, I'm wearing this from Goodwill and my friends are shopping new stores. Like, sure, I was aware, right? But I didn't really feel like I was missing out on stuff. Like, there were a few moments when I was a teenager, we couldn't afford certain things that I might be a little bummed about or disappointed about, but there were never any significant moments in my childhood where I, could process like, wow, we're missing out on a lot because of money or because of status or anything like that. Our parents had such a confidence in who they were, and they also had such a joy for life and a joy for each other and us as their kids, that it kind of like that was just what we valued over money or expensive things. And so we really didn't think about the things that we were missing that often. A lot of people know that I'm not neurotypical. When I was 11, I got a good amount of my diagnosis, which was Tourette syndrome, OCD, which is obsessive compulsive disorder, ADHD, which is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and GAD, generalized anxiety disorder or general anxiety disorder. And that was a lot for a kid to handle, and that would be a lot to unpack in an introduction. But it was a lot for a kid to handle. It was pretty severe between the ages of 9 and 14, to the point of like walking around would be a challenge, not because the task of walking was hard, but because the tics were so intense that it would interrupt my walking or interrupt my talking. And those kinds of things still happen to this day. Of course, once I start talking about it, it always shows up. But it's definitely not as severe as it was when I was 10 or 11 years old. My parents did what any parent would do. When my tics first started at about 9 years old, they took me to the doctor and then to a neurologist. And once I finally got my diagnosis at 11 years old, huge thanks to my mom for really advocating for me. And my dad too, but my mom, is a stay-at-home parent and was doing a different level of advocating on a day-to-day basis of researching my symptoms, and so when I finally got my diagnosis at 11, my parents did what was best for me, was just try different medications. And we talked about that as a family now, like that was one of the hardest seasons of my life, but it was the only option for us. There's a ton of different stuff now, and just the conversations are just so different now. And there's Facebook groups for moms going through stuff like this, and it's just totally different now. But back in my day, that was the best option that we had. And some medications will help for a little while and then stop, and some medications were absolutely horrible, so we had to stop them as soon as possible. Some of the experiences with neurologists were emotionally traumatic. I mean, we just had a really, really, really challenging time trying to get good help. All the while, I'm still dealing with these symptoms on a day-to-day basis, not doing any schoolwork and not really having a social life and not really having any good concept of like good self-esteem or anything like that. It was just pretty horrible. And I fought through it. My family fought through it, and we got through those years, again, with my mom and dad's research. They kept me involved in things that would hopefully give me the best shot possible at my version of a beautiful life. And one of those things, we tried different kinds of vitamins and adjusting my diet, my dietary intake and things like that. And those things, helped in certain capacities. My parents completely adjusted their sleep schedule for weeks on end when I didn't sleep anymore, which is so casual to say. It's not a casual thing. There were just weeks where I didn't sleep. And so my dad would stay up, all night with me and then go to work at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. And then my mom would be up with me during the day, and my sister had to do so many things independently. I mean, granted, she's 13, 14 years old at the time, but she had to do so many things independently because my situation took up so much time. But thankfully, my parents continued to just push for me to get better and find resolve. And thankfully, my sister has always been kind of independent, if you will. But she's just a good human, and she had her own stuff going on. But just continue to be a good big sister, no matter how much my stuff was. And even if we're not just talking about just my health, I mean, I was a talkative kid. I bet that's really surprising. But I talked a lot. I needed a lot of attention. I wanted a lot of attention. I wanted to sing all the time. I had dance numbers to do. I was trying to get that girl to be in every one of my YouTube videos. Looking back, I'm like, man, she was patient, because this is not all about neurodivergence. Some of it is, Jamie Grace, you talking a lot, baby girl, and my sister was just so patient through all my stuff. And congratulations to her for finishing high school at 14, but she, my mom added a couple extra assignments so she could finish at 16 and go off to college. And I miss her so much, but I'm so happy when I look back. I'm like, I'm so glad she got away from me. And I don't mean that to be like, oh, sisters, they think. No, that's not my vibe. That doesn't have to be my sister and I, whatever that stereotype. I genuinely mean my sister needed some physical space. And when I look back, I'm like, baby girl, you fought through a lot yourself. I'm glad she had some peace and quiet off at college. So I followed suit 2 years later to the same school. Surprise, surprise. And I went to the same school as her. And at that point, at 16, my tics had not gone away. It was still pretty obvious, but I learned how to manage a lot of it. I was off medication. That's kind of a thing that a lot of times, through puberty, those are some of the worst years for Tourette syndrome and things like that. But I was a young adult at this point at 16, and I really learned how to manage a lot of it on my own with diet, with vitamins that my parents had done a lot of research and found some stuff for me. And that, again, I still have my tics, but at that point, I was in the understanding of, I have a medical condition and this is how I operate day to day, right? I think a lot of times, and there's nothing wrong with this, but you're looking for a cure or a resolve or a resolution. And if we're going to even spiritualize it, looking for healing. And I'm not against any of those things. But I begin to realize how much God had healed me from being a 10-year-old that was so depressed and so physically ill that I could not move, to now being a 16-year-old, still sick, still not perfect, because perfection's gonna be in heaven, baby, but thriving in a college environment. To me, that was such a beautiful way that God healed me, and I was so grateful that I was able to have that experience. So, it took a long time through a lot of different adjustments, but I was able to go and have your very standard small Christian college, 30 minutes away from home, college experience. And so I'm really grateful for that. So yeah, my dad and mom are still pastoring at this point. I had chosen to walk with Jesus when I was 7 years old, still walking with him to this day, really vibing with that. My parents, they're super musical humans, so we always loved music. I mentioned YouTube, so I started making YouTube videos at 14. My sister is always super talented. She was singing and playing guitar. She went off to college and studied English, I believe. And so then when I go off to college, I'm making my YouTube videos. I'm trying to get back to my church at least half of the month, at least every other week, to either lead worship or volunteer with the kids. And before I know it, I start getting emails from some of my YouTube videos. Now, I was what you call a local celebrity. I would get recognized at Walmart once a year. You know what I mean? It'd just be like, are you that girl that you were singing at Starbucks last week and I dropped 50 cents in your guitar case? Yes, I am, baby. Line up and get my autograph. So that was the life that I was living. Try not to be jealous. And so by the time I was in college, it was just twice a year, baby. We even moving up on a Target. People recognizing me at Target. It's just been wild and crazy, boy. And so I remember, 16, 17, I get an email from a lady named Katie. I don't know if she wants me to say her name. I'm not going to say her last name. This lady named Katie that was connected with the show called iShine, and they had a TV show on, TBN, and they had this guy, Luke Bimward, who has been in, he's an actor, has been in a bunch of cool stuff. What was that movie that he had just done? Minutemen on Disney Channel. Jasmine Sagenario, who was just on Disney's Next Big Thing. Johnny and Brookie, Disney's Next Big Thing. Like all these really cool like kids and young artists and teenagers that were like on a TV show about faith and stuff. So I'm 17, in first year of college, getting this email saying that they had seen my YouTube videos, and I was like, I'm a star. But it was a really big deal to me. I really was so excited about it. So I signed with them. I do like a year or two of their TV show, of their tours, and that's when I first started touring full time. Now, mind you, ages 14 to 17, Morgan and I, we had been singing at local churches, and Morgan did a Will Tour for Scholarship thing. So like the year before she went to college, we road tripped as a family just around the Southeast, and she played all these random really cool places, and we met some amazing people. And so playing shows was a thing for us. But 17, I Shine, this is the first time I stepped on a tour bus. This is the first time I'm like signing autographs for like more than 2 minutes, which 2 minutes is still a really cool amount of time to meet people. But like people were like lined up and they were like, Jamie Grace. I'm like, it was like actually crazy. It was actually crazy. That's when I first heard of Paramore, because every girl on that tour was obsessed with Paramore, and I was like, who's this? And I fell in love with Paramore. It's so random, but that's just like a very distinct memory that I have of them being like, you don't know who Paramore is? And I was like, no. Because up until that point, like, I had started listening to, here we go, Preacher's Kid shows her true colors. I started listening to like some Missy Higgins, Eric Hutchinson, Kelly Clarkson, Justin Nozuka. But for the most part, like I'm in college full time, Group One crew, Audio Adrenaline, Plus One. Oh, the album came out 15 years ago. I still know it, So that was the first time that I ever like really like, I don't know, just like got out and just started like living life. Was on this Christian tour, and it was great. It was really cool. Then after just a few months on I Shine, I got another email. I want to say Katie actually connected me with this guy named Chad Eastham. He was a speaker at this thing called the Revolve Tour. Dear Mary Graham went to with Jesus this year, and I want to acknowledge her. I love her so much. She was the president of Women of Faith. It's like this big conference where they have like 10 to 15,000 women per night. And like the people up on stage, it was like, forgive me because I did like the teen version, so I don't always remember like the names of the ones at like the women's events, but like CeCe Winans was like one of the main like artists that would come every year. Or at least for a lot of the events and do stuff. Lisa Harper, who writes a lot of different like devotionals and stuff like that. And so it was this really big event. Patsy Claremont, like I love that lady. And so I got this email, or Katie connects me with Chad, and she's like, Chad wants to meet you at Starbucks. I'm like, why does Chad want to meet me? Chad's the speaker at the Revolve Tour. Where Group One crew is, and Aisha Woods. My little Preacher's Kid heart was losing it. And so I meet with Chad at Starbucks, and it's just like a nice little, hey, if you need a big brother in the business. And I was like, oh, okay, that was it. Then before I know it, that next week, I got an email from, this is actually starting to make me really sad, for this wonderful lady named Hannah Besser, who's also in heaven. She passed in the last 2 years, and I got an email from her that was like, have you ever been to the Revolve Tour? And I was like, Hannah Besser, Group One crew was there. Of course I've been to the Revolve Tour. It's my favorite place to go. I've seen Tammy Trent there. I've seen Natalie Grant there. I've seen Rachel Hockett there. I've seen Zoe Girl. I have pictures of me for years. I love the Revolve Tour, and I just met Chad. And Hannah's like, well, why don't you come and be my guest, and I'll show you backstage. Now, y'all, there's two parts of my brain. There's the businesswoman me that's like, well, yeah, of course I'll be there, right? And then there's like the a little bit ditzy preacher's kid that didn't realize that this was a potential work opportunity, right? And so both sides of my brain are just ping-ponging as I'm walking around backstage, and I was like, oh, snap, oh, snap. Long story short, Within a year of me doing iShine, the Revolve Tour offered me a deal to be their youngest female speaker that they had yet had. And so I took that deal and I flew to Texas and met with Mary Graham and the whole team and Hannah and Chad, and just had this incredible experience getting ready for their tour. My mom was my full-time manager for a long time, and she was working that deal. And so while she's in the middle of working this deal, we started getting emails from the music side of things. There's a record label in Nashville. They were reaching out, and that's my commentary. So they were reaching out at this time too. I signed with them. I did 2 albums with them, and it kept me very busy, and I'm so grateful for how the Lord moved on people's hearts and moved in my career in that season, because by the time I was doing the Revolve Tour as a speaker, it takes 8-9 months for big tours like that to plan a song, to plan a speech, and a talk is kind of what they call it in the evangelical world, and to plan all this stuff. I'm in college at this time. I'm kind of at the end of my season with iShine, so kind of figuring out what does that look like, these relationships, and are they doing the tour again and that stuff. I'm at this working, my mom's working my deal with Revolve, and by working the deal, it's like, okay, how many hotel rooms is she going to get, and how many, she needs to be able to travel with someone, she can't travel alone, she's only 19, all this stuff. So while my mom is actively working on that, negotiating with their team, she's also negotiating with this record label that it called. And by the time we were able to announce the record label, I was about to sign as a speaker. And so we had to tell them, hey, by the way, she might have a song on radio in a few weeks. And they were like, wait, why would she have a song on the radio? And my mom's like, well, she's a singer. Wait, we thought she was a speaker. No, she's also a singer. And then we're telling the record label people, hey, by the way, she's going to be on this big tour where she's a speaker. We thought she was a singer. Yeah, she's also a singer. And so it was just like this crazy thing that happened at the same time. And then I ended up on the phone with my friend Taylor. And by friend, I mean, she was my friend in my head, but she has a show called Kevin and Taylor in the Morning on 104.7 The Fish. And I was telling her, like, hey, I have a song coming out on the radio. I just called them one day, and she was like, oh, you have a song coming out? Like, what? And, like, I think it was, like, coming out that week. There's a lot of times when my story is shared, and I totally, again, I'm grateful for how God moved on people's hearts to give me a chance to share the stage with them. I'm totally grateful for that. Oftentimes, when my story is shared, the women that were working behind the scenes really don't get any recognition. Like Taylor from The Fish, Hannah and Mary Graham from the Revolve Tour, my mom who's working these deals to make sure I can sing where I'm supposed to speak and speak where I'm supposed to sing. And within months, I was full-time on tour with the Revolve Tour, living in Nashville, working on a full-length album with a label that I had dreamt of working with for a long time. And I had a #1 song on Christian radio called Hold Me. And I was 19 years old, and I found out that same year that Hold Me had been nominated for a Grammy. It would eventually go gold. And I would, from ages 17 to 24, play 200 to 300 shows a year. And there's a lot to unpack there, but that is my life. I had, I think, 4 #1s on radio, Christian radio and gospel radio. I was Dove Awards New Artist of the Year. I had some wild, crazy stuff happening. At the age of 24, 25, I think, I decided to walk away from the record label that I was with. That is my commentary per not my request. And then I decided to really, really make sure that I was intentional just about what I wanted to do and where I wanted to be and who I wanted to be. The music industry is a very fascinating place, and I could unpack that for days. I won't do that in this video, but it's such a huge part of my story, being in the music business since I was a kid, but it's also such a small part of my story as well. It's some days it feels a lot bigger in my story, and some days it feels a lot smaller, but it just kind of is, if that makes sense. Because when I think about like who I am now and how I introduce myself, the first thing is I'm a studio owner. For the first time in my life, my studio is not at home. I thought I could be a homeschool mom and a studio owner in the same physical space. My 4-year-old said, "Psych! Oh, you needed to be quiet in here? Have fun, mom." So that that really didn't work out for too long. But I'm a studio owner, and I love it here, and I love that I have this space for a 19-year-old that might have been anything like me, that says life is getting really fast and really real, and I need a safe space, I need a haven, I need somewhere to record a song where there's another female that's working, where there's another Black person in the studio. I didn't see Black, never mind. I'm also married. I got a husband. Pumped about that. I got one of those. My husband's name is Aaron. He's a personal trainer. And he's amazing at it. Like, he's really good at his job. He also coaches a lot of kids, and that's just really cool, because he, similarly to me, so he was an athlete, his whole life, and a lot of things that I think he would have wanted from a guy coach or trainer in his life. He gets to be that for this next generation of athletes and provide just like this emotionally well place that while he's also doing his training and dynamic stretch and all this stuff. So it's really cool to get to see him live out his dream. We have a 4-year-old named Isabella. She is phenomenal. I love her. She's very loud and very talkative, and I have no idea where she gets it from. She's also one of the funniest people I've ever met. She has an incredible sense of humor and keeps Aaron and I laughing all the time. I'm still really close to my sister Morgan. She's married for about 13 years. She got married in 2010, I think. She is awesome. My brother-in-law Patrick is awesome. He's in grad school right now. She's in grad school. They are both really smart. Really smart. They'd be kicking butt. I'd be like, "So what are you learning?" "Well, what?" I'm very proud of them. They have a 4-year-old, and I really want you guys to know I'm very proud of them, because what I'm going to say is going to be really strong. Their son is way cooler than they are. He's 4. We did not plan it, but our kids are 8 days apart. I don't know why. I'm just kidding. I used to be kind of jokingly petty and be like, Aaron and I, we got pregnant 8 months into marriage, something like that. That was your stereotypical wait till marriage, Christian couple. How that happen? You know what I mean? That was us. And then we're like, let's go tell everybody. And Morgan and Patrick over here married 73 years, and now y'all gonna be pregnant. Now, okay. So, whatever. Hilarious. I would not have it any other way. My Jacob, my nephew, my Jacob. Okay? Mine. Jacob and Bella are besties. If you've ever heard the names Jacob and Bella anywhere else, you act like you didn't, because we did not realize it at first. So leave it alone. But yeah, we love those kids. They're super great. They're besties. They're really close with their grandparents, my mom and dad, and their other grandparents too. But they're at my mom and dad's house all the time. They don't want to hang out with us. You see how I'm over here trying to prove that me and Jacob are buddies? It's because Jacob don't want to hang out with me. He saw me this morning. I was like, "Hey, Jakey, hi." What? He's just looking for Bella and my parents. But it's fine. They're great. They're adorable, and we love them so much. I have a lot of really cool friends. I wrote a book called Finding Quiet. I just released an album called Dreamers. I like puzzles. I like games. I forgot to eat lunch today. I'm going on a date with my husband tonight. And yeah, that's me. That is me. There's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So, if you don't know, now you know. that's who I am. And I don't have anything else to say. Oh, I think I pushed the wrong button. Yep, okay. So, put that in your mailbox and check it. Thanks for being here. I'm very socially 10 out of 10. A social experience with me is standard, great, delightful, magic. I enjoyed the new Disney movie Wish. I read my Bible. I like to do that. Sometimes I feel like if you don't tell people you like to read your Bible, they'll be like, do you read your Bible? Sorry. Do you guys ever see my comments on social media? Like, if I don't post about my husband for 2 days, where's your husband? Oh, are you married? Oh, where'd he go? You know what I mean? If I don't post a scripture for a few weeks, oh, do you still do church? Do you still go? If I post a song about my friends, oh, do you know Jesus? Do you know God? Well, if I didn't, you're not making his people sound very welcoming. Now, are you? That might have been harsh. I have a lot of thoughts and feelings about a lot of things. Thanks for being here. I just want to introduce myself. It's been a while. People do something called Vlogmas, where they do a video every day through Christmas for the month of December. I might do my own version of that. And this is where I figured I would start.